Welcome to the Resilient Christian Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Christjoy. There's 4 areas of my life where I attempt to serve the Lord, and those areas are academia, baseball, filmmaking, and music. One of the most recent things that we've done is a music video called Never Mind.
Never mind, never mind, you're really not my kind. Never mind, I need to hit rewind. Never mind, I don't wanna be unkind.
Now on the surface, this video seems like it's just really goofy and some character going around everywhere acting like a moron. Well, that is part of it, just to have fun. But really the video is about showing people the 7 cardinal sins where you can get yourself into trouble because you choose to do some things that might seem kind of fun and helpful and bring you pleasure, but really it goes against who we are as God's chosen people. And when I say chosen people, what I mean is those who are called to follow Christ, Jesus, right? And anyone can choose to do this. This is open for everyone. It really is. And that's the gift. But the thing about it is, you have to choose to follow. The gift is free, but you have to choose to follow Jesus. And one of the things Jesus calls us to do is to get rid of the sin and compromise in our life. And that is not something that we like to talk about anymore. And so with this video called Never Mind, I have myself playing a goofy character who's doing some of these sins to show you just how dumb they are. And yet I think a lot of us do them in real life all the time, every day. I know I do. But we have to start pinpointing these things to help us recognize the sin and corruption when it's in our lives and what we can do to get it out. Let's take one example here. Envy. Now, envy's not one that we catch very often because it's kind of hidden. We might look at someone else and see that there's things about their life that we want. This happens on social media all the time. We think everyone is living their best life. And I can tell you that I definitely struggle with that. I'm the kind of person who enjoys creating content and I put things out there. And then I wonder why I only get like 35 views. And there's other people out there who get thousands and thousands of views. And I definitely compare myself to them. And in that way, I would say that I am envious of those other people. And I struggle with that. And maybe that's a way of building some motivation to be inspired to push yourself further. And I'm like, okay, you can see that. But where the problem comes is where we lose our own joy. The joy in the light of Jesus Christ that he's given us is that he has given us what we need. And sure, we can work to follow him. We can work to be better. But if it becomes a factor where we lose our own joy by being envious of someone else, then that is a problem. And these are things that we need to start recognizing. And I know in my own life, I have had to do that myself. So in this segment of the film, we go into the gym and it's got my friend Dorian Crowder, who is a teacher that I worked with a few years back. He's hilarious. He's funny. And it was so great to have him on the film with us here. But what was the thing about it is in real life, he is taller than me. He's not like epically taller than me, but in the video, the segment of the scene, we made him look taller than me big time because it's very funny to see how we judge ourselves in relation to each other and like just even how tall we are. So believe me, it is an issue for me. Like, I enjoy having some height. It gives me a feeling of confidence and authority, but I'm not that tall. Matter of fact, here's the real deal, okay? Most of my life, I would say that I went around thinking I was 6'1", because I remember what happened. So back in high school, we got measured for baseball because I was a varsity baseball player and they were taking all our stats and all that. So I got measured and I think I got measured at 6 foot. Okay. So, but that wasn't good enough for me. So I think I said the rationalization I made back then was to say, well, yeah, but because of my hair, I'm 6'1", and I joked around. And I think I had some spiky hair back then, or hair that went up a little bit. And so I went with it and it just became who I thought I was, 6'1", for the rest of my life, pretty much. Let's say I was 17 back then. All right. So 17, 27, 37, 47. So let's call it 30 years. Okay. I was thinking in my mind, I'm 6'1", because I was 6 foot when I was measured in high school. And then in college, I just went with it. They didn't officially measure us. They're like, how tall are you? And I'm like, 6'1". And I just went with it. Okay. So I think the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm always 6'1", but subconsciously I'm like, man, you're 6 foot. Okay. So the other day I was getting married. Yes. Well, I've been married for 28 years, but anyways, the other day I was getting measured for my graduation regalia, the gown I'm going to wear because I'm getting my PhD. I earned it, got it, finally getting to walk the stage at Texas A&M. Thank goodness. I did get hired there as an instructor, by the way, thankfully. So that's my full-time job now. But I got these beautiful graduation robes for the doctoral candidates to wear. And we had to get measured. And so Laura had the tape measure and she was behind me and she raised it up and she's like, yep, 6'1", because she knows that's what I've always thought of myself as 6'1". She's like, yeah, I'm not 6'1". And I'm like, whoa. I could hear it in her voice. And I was like, what am I really? She's like, and she stretches it out again, and she puts it there hastily, which is like, well, 6 foot, definitely 6 foot, whatever, definitely 6 foot. And I'm like, I could hear it in her voice. I'm like, no, let me see it. And I've always just trusted it. I've never really looked at it myself. So we got it measured out and all that. And it's not 6'1". It's not even 6 foot. Like for real, on the tape measure, it's 5'11 and a half. Now you can imagine if I'm thinking I'm 6'1" my whole life and like at least 6 foot, that's some amount of understanding and confidence. But to really find out that like, you're more like 5'11 and a half guy, that takes a hit at my confidence and pride, right? So when I go into the gym and I look at other people or my buddy, even Dorian Crowder, who is taller than me, I can't remember how tall he is. He's like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. I do have a form of envy because I would like to be a little bit taller. Like it's always that, right? It's just like, if I could just be a little bit taller, if I could just lose a little bit more weight, if I could just pitch a little bit better in baseball. So that's what I struggle with. I definitely do. So I feel a lot of authority in me as if the Lord has called me to do some things in the world and be a leader. And I think as a society, we do see height as a part of that leadership. So for me, recently at 49 years old to discover that, you're not even really 6 foot, man. You're more like 5'11", maybe and a half. That's hard. That takes a hit. And so I find myself struggling with envy, and the pride that I've also harbored definitely is cut down. And I think that's a good thing, but it is something that I struggle with. So in the making of this music video for me, just that one goofy scene of me wearing all neon and acting like a dork in the gym and looking up to my buddy Dorian, that is something that I personally struggle with and have to deal with. So in my walk with Jesus, to be resilient, what I have to realize is one of the first things I can do is recognize these sins that I've let creep into my life, like envy, and I can start to cut them out. So that is the suggestion. I know when it comes to sin that all of us feel like, well, these are the rules and I don't need to follow them because we're humans with free choice and we can do whatever we want. I'm not even sure that dusty old book matters these days now anyway. Okay, there is some truth to that. We have free choice, free will. That's what God gave us. We can do whatever we choose. But in choosing things that go against what God has designed for us, it hurts us. It actually hurts us. So what I'm telling you to do is to take the opportunity to see the Bible or the 10 Commandments or what's called sins that are hurtful to us as not things that are meant to hold us back, but guidelines to give us a blessed life. So instead of me understanding that envy is okay, because if I envy someone, I can kind of hate them and push them aside and think of myself as better. And it's a way of protecting myself from being hurt because I think maybe they're a little bit better than me. Actually, if we recognize these sins like envy, it can help us let go of that and start to have more of the joy in ourselves instead of being overcome by these emotions that maybe we don't recognize a lot of the times are in there with us. So when it comes to resilience, one of the ways that we can start to be resilient, to overcome adversity, is to recognize these sins or these obstacles that are in us that a lot of times society these days says there's no problem. So another one that we might look at is pride. And for me, pride is a big struggle. It is a huge struggle for me because I do feel a lot of the authority and leadership that God has put inside of me. And in some of the positions where I am, like directing films or being on stage making music, or being at Texas A&M where I'm an instructor over, like, let's just say at a time in a class 25 students, or maybe it's a mass lecture class for me, which would be like 80 students. I'm in charge. And in my younger years, and even it creeps in now and then, is pride is something that really I struggle with. And it's difficult because society these days thinks of pride as something that is good. Like, we're supposed to be proud of our accomplishments. We enjoy being proud to be an American. And I understand that sentiment. And I think there should be the gratitude for the blessings that God has given us. But we need to be very careful, because this is how Satan works. Or if you don't want to talk about Satan, that's fine. We put that over there. That idea is on the side. This is how the corruption works inside of ourselves then, with the choices that we make. So we can say that we're proud, but if we really mean that we're more grateful and excited, we need to be careful about saying we're proud or our pride, because pride becomes corrosive inside of ourselves, because pride is a way of taking what we've been given and pointing it back towards us and harboring it this direction, instead of placing the joy and the light of Christ out into the world, which is the way of sharing that joy with other people. Pride is about pointing to ourselves. Joy is about outwardly giving it to other people. And that's what Jesus calls us to live the light of Christ, the joy that is outward, because when we give that joy away and lift other people up around us, we feel connected to them and we create that bond. So that when there is adversity and challenge in our lives or in the world, if we have those bond or the network connection, we remain lifted up in that net or that network that will not let us down, as opposed to our pride, which is very individual. It's inward looking. We feel alone and isolated when we start to get our pride. And that's a very slippery slope to watch or walk down, because when we're prideful, it feels so good. It's almost euphoric. We've accomplished some things. We've got some things going on. And it is a wonderful, empowering feeling. The problem with it is a slippery slope, and we slide down it very quickly. Believe me, I know in many aspects of my life. If I have a good game in baseball, these days doesn't happen very often, but when I do, it's a challenge for me not to be prideful as if it was my effort, but to be grateful because I know the opportunity that the Lord gave me. And here's how I try to do that and maintain gratitude instead of pride. And the Lord has really helped me work on this over the years. For example, I was watching a baseball game the other day. It was a high school game. There was a dominant pitcher. It was a young guy. He was a stud. He was awesome, and he knew it. And I wouldn't say that he was over the top being prideful, but he was definitely very confident, leaning towards a little bit cocky. And this is not me judging. This is me observing and being like, okay, what do I do for myself? So this pitcher was he was mowing people down, dominating, striking people out, and then snap, his UCL tore. It's the pitcher's muscle right here, the ulnar collateral ligament. It is the dreaded injury for pitchers. It snapped, and he was done. That's it. He'd have to have surgery at the minimum, or he could be done forever. He probably will have surgery these days, but he's done for like a year at least. Okay, and this is in his high school prime. And I think about that for myself. I'm coming up on 50 years old as a pitcher. Yes, I'm only pitching in the amateur recreation leagues in Houston, Texas, but I love it. I love the guys. The competition is fantastic. Sometimes we play on some really cool fields, sometimes not, but I love being able to throw a baseball hard, a fastball. I also throw curveballs and sliders and knuckleballs, things like that, which are slower, but there's nothing like throwing a fastball and throwing it past the batter and they swing through it and they strike out. That's one of the greatest feelings. That can go to my head very quickly. So what I do is I remember the high school kid who was confident, maybe prideful, and his arm snapped and he's done. I am not saying anything about judgment or like the Lord caused his arm to snap. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm looking at myself to remember what the Lord has given me. And the Lord has given me the opportunity at 49 years old to throw hard. I'm one of the faster velocity pitchers in the league, and I'm grateful for that. I know at any moment the Lord could take that away from me, or my arm could pop, it could snap, and I'd be out, probably forever as a 49-year-old. So These are ways of us recognizing the gifts that God has given us. And instead of being prideful and walking around on the baseball field or the mound like it's all our blessing, it's all our doing, we can give thanks to the Lord for what he's done for us. Now, why that's important is because, again, if we're talking about resilience, specifically resilience as Christians, it is important for us to have a network of connections, because resilience is not individualistic. It is not one person. Yes, somebody can be strong and they can be tough and they can stand alone and overcome adversity. But resilience, if that's something you're interested in, and because we are Christians, and Christians in effect are called by design for God to be in community with one another. That's what a Christian means. That is the community, walking with Jesus in community with other believers. Then we need to be resilient, as in we need to create our bonds with other people. Pride does not allow us to do that. And when you examine our lives, when we tend to get isolated and alone, it's because a lot of the times our pride is holding us back and keeping us individualized. So in the music video, I've got the scene about pride where I'm washing my truck all dressed up in red. I got this beautiful Boston Red Sox baseball uniform on and a goofy big old red top hat with sunglasses. And I'm spraying all this stuff on my truck, enjoying what I have gotten for myself, this wonderful vehicle. And I'm so focused on myself in the music video that I've got Laura, my wife, in the truck, and she's not even good enough to come out and help me wash it because it's all about me. And the thing is, when I choose to do that out of my pride, I miss that connection with my wife, the closest person to me who cares for me and loves me and takes care of me. And that's where pride goes astray. It separates us instead of bonding us. So those are two scenes that we look at in this goofy music video called Nevermind. And resilience is something that's going to be very important for us as Christians, because the time that we are in is dire. What I mean is, we look around the world and understand that it's not getting better. It is very challenging. We look at the sickness, we look at the storms, we look at the violence, and we understand the sign of the times around us to know, just like the Bible says, yes, you may not know the exact moment when Jesus comes back, but you do need to recognize the sign of the times and take action accordingly. So I'm here to tell you that we do need to recognize the sign of the times. We need to stand and be resilient together, to love the community around us, because that's what Jesus called us to do. It is not a situation where we sit back in the pew of our church and we say, well, I've done my 1 hour on Sunday and that's all I need to do, and I'm waiting for Jesus to come save me. We can choose to do that. I understand. I get it. But what the Lord has called me to do is to reach out through platforms like this podcast here, to encourage people to be ready for the opportunity to be resilient during the storm. Because this is going to be one of the greatest times in the history of God's people to save people for Jesus Christ, to have a life and an eternity of being together in community, not only with each other, but with our Creator, Jesus Christ, the Lord, who gave us all of this incredible blessing. It's waiting right there for us, but we do have to get through the storm. My friends, read the book of Revelation. Before Jesus comes, it is not easy. Whether you're reading the beginning of Revelations or the end of Revelation, it's not easy. Jesus does not come and just take people away. If you read the book, understand that there is great adversity before Jesus comes. And that's what we need to be ready for. Why does God do that? Why would God put us through that suffering? Because God loves epic stories, and because God is love. God gives us the opportunity to choose love. Without the struggle, without the adversity, without the evil and the challenge and the pain, there would be no love. There would be no story of God's love for us. So we have the opportunity before us to prepare for the adversity that is to come as we get ready for Jesus to come back and save those who choose to follow him. This is what we're doing here on the Resilient Podcast. I'm Andrew Christjoy. Thank you so much for listening in. We've got much more coming over the next few weeks, so I look forward to talking to you then. We'll see you next time.